And hello everyone, welcome back to another video. In the previous video we took a look at styling our app a little bit so it looks a tiny bit better, and finally dark mode works. I'm so sorry for any of your eyes that got burned out. Anyways, in today's video we'll be focusing on two features. The first feature is the action of deleting a post. So here we go, we want to be able to delete that. Currently it just does nothing. The second feature is the like feature. And with the like feature we'll also be implementing our first tracker, and be using a tracker to track whether something has been liked and how many times. So let's start off by deleting a post. So to delete a post, we can go into our API, post, methods, set, and in here we have a set.post.create. We want to do the same, but set.post.delete. And then we just want to get the post ID. So here we say post ID, and we just need to define the model. So let's select that, go to models, export interface method name model Pascal case, and just say post ID, which is a string. And here we just say method set post delete. There we go. And now we can get the post ID. First we need to make sure that the post ID value we're getting is actually a value that we want. So check and post ID string. Want to make sure that post ID is in fact actually a string. Then first we get the current user. So current user async. So this will get the currently logged in user. If you're not logged in, you should not be able to delete a post anyways. So then if not user, return no auth error. Let's make sure the post actually exists. So await post collection dot find one async post ID. Now if the post was not found, then return not found error. Now here I didn't specify it in the script, but you should actually check if the owner of this post is the current user. So post.userid, if that is the same as the user._id, or actually let's check if it's not, because this is what you should be doing, if I can spell if. So if it's not the same, we want to say return no auth error, because if you're not the creator of this post, then you should not be able to delete it. So this is not in the script, but this is something you should add because it's actually a very important step, especially for security reasons. Otherwise, any logged in user who can spoof a delete request to the server will be able to delete any post. So this will make sure only the truly logged in owner of this post can do that. Then you just go await post collection dot update. We pass in a post ID, and then remember to always use set. If you don't use set, you can actually completely wipe the collection or the item in the collection. So always use set. I don't know why set isn't just enabled by default, but yeah. We say deleted true and deleted at new date. So this will mark it as deleted, and our data fetcher, so we go here to methods get, our data fetcher will by default not get things that are deleted or marked as deleted. However, if you would prefer we just delete it outright, it is also possible to just go post collection dot remove, and then it will forcefully remove this from the database, but then it's unrecoverable. So if you ever want to restore that, it's not going to work. Best in between would be to add a timer, and this could be something you could do for homework. So add a timer that after, let's say, a month, that there is no interaction with trying to restore that post, you delete it, and that will save some space in your database. Same with like user accounts. If someone wants to delete their user account, give them like a month or two period to restore it. So here's some homework. You don't have to do it right now. If you don't feel you have the skill level, you can wait until the end of the course. But very much remove a post if it has been deleted long enough. But here we have our delete method. Now to actually make it work, we can go here to our UI, browse page, and then post card. Then we can create a function that will handle deletion for us. So here we actually push the button that will apply the optional deleting. So we can either create this method before post action or after post action. I'll create it before. So const handle delete post. And we don't need to specify any post ID or anything because we already know what post we're on. And of course, if you wanted to, you could also do this check in here. So if these two are not the same, just as an extra precaution, return message.error. And I will prevent them on the client side at least from bypassing this right here if they just try and hack this. Anyways, so let's jump off here to just go into try and catch. And then let's find that method we just created, copy that. Await meteor, let's import that, call async. And then const data will just be of type method set post delete model. And it needs the post ID, which is post._id. Pass in data right here. And if it was a success, we can just say message.success post deleted. And then to make sure we refresh the page after they deleted the post, because they shouldn't be able to see it after they delete it, we can do one of two things. We can either go and get the parent use state that contains the post, or alternatively we could refresh the page and it will reload a couple of new things plus remove their old post. To do that, we need to fetch the parent data, which we don't currently do. So here we can just say fetch parent data, and that will be of fetch data type. Now we pass this in here. We can go if it was provided to us, then call it. And let's say true, so it runs silently. And we can also await it if you want. Then here we can just say error response error as meteor.error, and then could not delete post. And then we just need to make sure to actually pass in fetch parent data. So to pass in the fetch parent data, we go to the parent, of course. And here we are where we have fetch data. We just pass it in where we have our post card, and it will be fetch parent data is equal to fetch data. Now here we can take our handle delete post, and where we have our delete pop confirm here, we can say on confirm handle delete post. And there we go. Now, if we give this a refresh, we go down here, then here where we have nick, which is 765, we can go delete, and maybe not. Yeah, why not? Let's delete it. Okay, now it's gone. It's still in the database, but we simply cannot see it anymore because we just said deleted should be, or we only search for things that are not deleted. Alright, now let's get into one of the more fun things and implement post liking. So I'm going to go up here to API. Let's just collapse everything. So API, and create a new folder called post like, which will contain all of the usuals. So post like.ts, models.ts, methods. It will also contain a special folder, but we'll get to that later. Get.ts, set.ts, index.ts. And index, of course, imports get and set. Alright. Now to create this model, or collection, we can actually, let's copy one of these. This is mostly just copy, paste, modify. And we also need a model to define how it will actually look. So if we go here to interface, post like model. Now each one will need an underscore ID, which is a string, a user ID, so who actually did the liking, string. Let's add some docs here. User who liked the post ID that was liked, and created at, which is date. Now you might be asking, why not just save all the users who liked the post in an array on the post? Well, if you ever want to save any extra data, then it will become very difficult. Plus, if you want to get all the users who like the post, but you want to limit it to, like, let's say the first 10, then it's going to be very difficult to do that if you have a whole array with everyone. This here just gives us the option to allow a lot more data to be stored, as well as be able to still limit it if we need to, and still work with it pretty quickly. Because imagine somebody, or 2 or 3 million people likes a post. Now every time you fetch that post, you're going to have to count that array. You're going to have to fetch that array. And that is a very big thing to do. So this here just splits it off into its own little thing, so we don't have to worry about it. And then just, of course, export default post like model. Now here with post like, we just import our, and we can actually just change the user profile text to post like. Then here where we have the collection names, we need to add our post like. So this will be post likes, and then we just say post likes. Also, I noticed that the user profile here does not follow our usual S here. A little bit late in the game to change that, since we already have a bunch of user accounts. But if you want to, you could fix that and so everything is as it should be. I'm not going to do that since it's a little bit late in the game. And I'm just going to order it a little bit. Okay. Then we also need to make sure that here in the get methods, we do in fact call, and it will actually show us an error, the post likes. So if we go here, post likes, then post likes collection. And there we go. So let's first implement liking or disliking a post. So here we go. Meteor, import that, dot methods, pass in our object. And this is something that a lot of developers do. I don't necessarily like it because it swaps between 2 states, and later in development this can cause somewhat of an issue, because usually the boss will tell you, hey, I like something like this, and then usually 2 years down the road he wants to change it, and then this could cause some issues. But what some like to do is they go set.postLike or unlike. So they make both the like and the unlike one method. This has benefits, such as you only need to call one method whether it is liked or disliked. It does have the downside, however, that it does both. So if someone spams the like and dislike button, or the like button, because they want to like it but they don't see it updating it, it will like, unlike, unlike, which can kind of clog up the system as well. And later, if you want to modify this to specifically only do likes, now you have to split it up, and everywhere where you call this, you will need to go make sure you call both. I recommend from the start just splitting it up to like and unlike, or remove like, or whatnot. But it's up to you, because it is good to show you all of the ways that you can do things, even though it's not always the best way to do it. And it gave you ways that you could potentially do it better, so if you were to work on it on your own, you would do it like that in the future instead. Again, here we only need the post ID, so the one we're liking or disliking. So if we go to models, our get methods, set methods, and here we export interface method. Man, what am I typing today? Model. Then here we just go Pascal case, post ID, which is a string. We're going to be using the post ID and not the post like ID to target it, because if a post like does not exist yet, then you cannot target it to update it. So you gotta pass in the post ID and not the post like ID. And here we just say post ID and then method set post like or unlike model. Check that and import that post ID is in fact a string, and check if the user is currently logged in, because if you're not logged in, you should not be able to like a post. Some websites do that though, so you might want to allow that. If not user, then return no auth error, because this is going to be done for almost every single method in the whole code base. So having something to shorten it is not a bad idea. I'm not going to do that though. Let's get the post collection dot find one async post ID. If not post, then return a not found error post. Next we can go const post like, and now we're going to see if we can already find a like that has been given. That will be a wait post like collection dot find one async, where the user, and let's go like this, user ID is equal to the user._id, and the post ID is equal to the post ID that was passed in, or if you're extra sensitive, post._id. Does not matter which one you choose. Now, if a post like was actually found, then we want to delete it or remove it. Now, you have two ways of doing this. The first way you can do it is how we always do it, where we update it, but you'll notice I conveniently left out the deleted and deleted at here from the post model. So we're not going to do that. This time we're going to use the remove async, just so we at least have an example of it in the code base. But as usual, I'd say put it in a deleted stack, but because likes are so often used and so many, you might want to just remove it, because it's not important information that's lost if you delete a like. But it's up to you how you see it in terms of importance. Following the rest of the code base, making it delete might actually fit in to work with the rest of the code base. So if someone goes here, they're like, what? Why is this different? So you could do that. And in post like collection dot remove async. Plus, if they re-like a post, then you can just undelete the post instead of having to add the post. But yeah, that's up to you. And we add a post like._id, and that will remove the post. Now here you can either do a return, which I prefer, or you can do an else here. And in else, if their post like did not exist, so if one doesn't exist yet, was never created, we just say await post like collection dot insert async. We add the user ID, we add the post ID, and then we added the created at, which is new date. And here we actually seem to be getting an error. Let's take a look at it. There's already a collection named user profile. Ooh, let's take a look. Where would that be? You know where it comes from? It just hit me. If we go to our post like here, aha, user profile. That's what that's what you get for copying and pasting. Okay, there we go. Problem solved. Now we should not be getting that error. And here we go. So now we can actually like or unlike it and whatnot. How you do this is up to you. There's many ways to handle this. This is perfectly fine for me, at least, since post likes are not very important. They don't contain a lot of information. And if you don't need it, just remove it. Now that we have this, we need to make sure that we can actually use it. So let's go to startup. Make sure to import it. So post like. So here with the databases. Post like. And Bob's your uncle. Now we can actually like or unlike a post. Alright, so now the majority of our code is going to be working on the front end. So let's go to UI, browse page components, and here. So let's first implement liking or disliking a post. So let's create the liking or unliking function. So let's go const handle like or unlike. And here we're going to do something new. Use memo. Inside of use memo, we're going to create an debounce. And to use debounce, we need to install Lodash. So let's go here, npm install Lodash. Lodash gives us a bunch of useful little functions we can use in our code base to just make things easier. And also install its dependency, so npm-d at types/Lodash. And you might need to just reload your window to get those types working. Then here we'll use Lodash, so we just use underscore, that will auto import Lodash right here. .debounce, and I'll explain why we use this in a second. This has its own little function it calls. And let's go here and just say 1000. And then let's go here and just add in empty dependencies. Okay, so this looks very scary, but it's not nearly as scary. Use memo will only recompute the memoized value once if when one of the dependencies has changed, aka it will not pretty much re-render this unless one of these changes, almost like a use effect, but not quite. It's almost like the opposite. So this will make sure that this debounce isn't recreated every render. This is important because this debounce makes sure that the user cannot spam the like or dislike button. Debouncing very much delays something from happening. So here, you can read through this whole documentation if you want. And here it says, creates a debounce function that delays invoking function after a wait of milliseconds. Very much, we will not execute it until this time has passed. So if someone likes a post, but they spam the like button, then it will only trigger once. It won't trigger per click. It's very important because someone might spam that like button. You don't want that to hit your database continuously because that's going to put a lot of load on your system. So here we say, hey, only once every second are you allowed to execute this function. That's what this whole debacle does. Take note, this is an anonymous function containing this right here. If this looks confusing, alternatively, you could do, and let me just confirm, yeah, you could do this, just wrap it like that and say return. Wait, and that doesn't like that. Wait, let me see. Oh, here we go, wrong one. Could do that and then just say return. This will make it look a little bit easier to understand, so if you're having trouble with how it looked before, this could also work. However, I'm going to do this. And then in here, you can have your liking or disliking. So if not user ID, when you just say return message.info, you need to be logged into post. Okay, so there we have that. Then we can have our try and catch with, let's add our error response here. Error as meteor.error could not like or unlike post. Again, now you don't know if they're liking it or unliking it, or you could just do a check to see if they were liking or unliking it, but yeah, you get the point. And here we have await meteor.callAsync, and we want to call, if we go to post like, here we go, want to call that. And we can have a const data, and here you can just add an async, otherwise it won't work properly. Method set post like or unlike model. And this contains just a post ID, so post._ID. Then here with data, we just pass that in. And there we go. Now we can go here and say handle like or unlike post. And let's see here. Here's the heart outlined. On click, there we go. Okay, I'm going to open up the database. Then I'm going to connect to local. We'll see at Meteor, and there's no like model here yet. But if we give this a refresh and click on this like button here, you'll notice if we do a refresh here, there's now a post like, and there's our like. Now, just to show you how effective that, go here, this here is, let's go and say console.log running. I want you to see something here. Now you can't actually see the like happening yet, but if I click it once, after a second it goes running. If I spam click it, it just does it one more time. That's the power. If we did not do that, if we did not do this debounce and use memo, then let's go like this. So if we did not add that, and here we were to spam or like, you'll see that number here racks up a ton. You know, every time we click it, we are creating or deleting that like. So it's very hard on the database because now, every time we click it, we're deleting and re-adding, deleting, re-adding, deleting, re-adding, which isn't really good for our database. So that is why we have this right here. Okay, now we need to make sure we can actually see when we liked or disliked a post. To do that, we will need to fetch the data from the database, and we also want it to work kind of like how they do it with Twitter or X, where when you like a post, you will immediately see that like and everyone else who liked it. So you can see how many people have liked it and whatnot real time. So that's pretty cool. To do that, we can use a tracker, and this will be our first tracker. So let's go to our post like here, and we can create a new folder called server. Anyways, here we add publications.ts, and first we check if Meteor dot is server. So this can check if this is currently running on the server. So if this is on the server, we will run this. You could also do this here in the methods. It will actually just benefit, and I don't think it will do anything bad. So you could do that on the methods as well. Now you can go meteor dot publish, and this will create a publication. And the naming scheme is the same. Publish dot post like dot total likes, and here we can get the amount of people who actually liked it, and this will of course contain a function. Now we actually want to get the amount of people who liked a post via the post ID. So again, we can copy this, and here of the models we can go publication models, and is export interface, and you don't have to call it method. You could call it publish. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to say method, paste that there, model. But again, you might want to call it just publish or publication or something else other than method, because it's not really a method call. What you call it here, that's up to you. But for right now, I'm good by just calling it method, because now it's just going to be method publish instead of method. Anyways, now we can go Pascal, and there we go. So post ID is a string. Then here we can go like that, import that, and then just add our post ID. Alright, so here we can go return post like collection. Ooh, that voice crack. Find, and here we pass in the post ID. Take note of the brackets here. If it was just like this, it will search for the post like with the post ID, so you don't want that. And then we also pass in fields. It's very important to only pass in the fields that you actually need, because you have to remember publications are actually very, very heavy in Meteor. So you don't want to return all the data from the database. You just want to return the data you want, nothing else. So here we just say post ID 1. Now, this is a little caveat we have with this weird behavior is, if you filter using post ID, you need to specify you want to return the post ID field. I don't know why this is for publications. I find it slightly weird, since we already know what the post ID is. Why do we need to specifically return the post ID? But this is something you need to keep in mind. If you're filtering, you need to filter also by what you pass in here. I left a little comment snippet of this inside of the code base, so if you want to know a little bit more about it, you can go read it. But pretty much the gist is this also needs to be passed in here. Very weird behavior, don't know why it's specifically like that, but we live with it. But this is only required if you don't return all the data at once. If you don't add the fields here, it will return all of the data at once, but then you don't have to specify it. But that's very bad practice, rather just return the fields you need. And you can of course return any other fields that you need, but this one right here needs to be passed in. Okay, now that we have that, we need to make sure that this publish is visible on the server. So we go to startup and under publications. I'm just going to copy this, server publications. Now this will import it on the backend, so we can actually use it on the front end. Now to use it on the front end, we can go here to the post card. So here let's go const loading likes is equal to use tracker, which we import, and this contains a function. And there are also many ways to actually implement a tracker, so you'll need to take that in mind. My method is just the one I saw on the documentation, but I've been in many workplaces where they use different types of trackers. So how you implement the tracker is kind of up to you. So here we can go, and this is just a loader, so this won't actually fetch the data, it will just start loading for us. So const total like data, and this will be of method publish, and here we go. Those will be the data we pass in. Post ID is the post._id, and then const loading total likes is equal to meteor dot subscribe. So here we actually subscribe to this tracker, and this subscription will of course be this publication we have here. We pass that in as well as the data, so total like data, and then in the end we return not loading total likes dot ready. So if it's not ready, we're pretty much still loading the likes. That's what this is saying. So if this subscription is not ready to actually run, then we're loading the likes. We're still waiting for the likes to be loaded because the subscription is still setting up. That's what this does. Then here we can say const post likes, which is of type number or undefined. And also, before I forget, here with this find, just make sure there's no fetch here, so no dot fetch. Because you don't need to fetch today, you just need to do the cursor find. That's all this does. So you just need to do the cursor find and return it. So you don't need to dot fetch it. Anyways, here we get the post likes. Now this will use a use tracker. And you could, of course, do this all in one use tracker. You don't need to split it up like this. I've seen it many times where this is just done in one big use tracker. Then here we go const result is equal to post like collection dot find, where the post ID is post dot underscore ID. This is in theory optional because this right here will automatically just find the specific ones you want. But it's still good practice to add this anyways. And we just say dot count. Not count async, just regular count, and a return res. Now we have the number of posts that have actually been liked. And here with this use tracker, we can just pass in post dot underscore ID. Now again, this is just the dependency array. If the post ID changes, this will also change or also rerun. Completely optional if you do this. It won't change a thing. You might also want to add this dependency array up here. Now this post likes is pretty much just going to do a find and dot count. Now here in the post actions, where we have our heart, we can do two things. First, if it's loading the likes, then we just want to display the heart outlined. If it's no longer loading the likes for this post, we just want to display the post likes, or nothing if we don't have any. We can add a little space here and just add this heart outlined there as well. Alright, now if we go not there but here, and we open up another browser, and I wonder, do I have a jack@gmail.com here? Ah, I do. How awesome is that? Let's say we like this Dasta. Like it? You see, it added 1 to each of them. If I like it here as well, it will add 2 to each of them. And it will update immediately for both. There's no need to refresh the page. There's no need to refetch any data. That's what the tracker does. If I unlike here, you'll notice they both go back to 1. If I unlike here, both go away. So that is the power of a tracker. And now we can count how many people have liked this post. Now we need to see, have we liked this post? Now usually for something like, if we liked it, I would actually recommend you don't use a tracker. But because this is a little bit of a tutorial on trackers, we're going to do it like that anyways. So let's go to our publications. So post like publications. And here at the bottom, we go meteor.publish, publish, and we can just copy this right here. And then user liked. Here we'll need to get a couple of data, so let me copy this, go to our models, go export, interface, method, model. Make that Pascal, and we want to get the post ID, which is a string. We want to get the user ID, which is a string, and there we go. Now here we pass in our method, publish, there we go, get our 2 pieces of data, and of course we just do a return post like collection dot find post ID user ID. Again, we do specify these fields. So here with the fields, we just specify post ID 1 and user ID 1. There we go. Now we have our publication here. We can go back to postcard. And now again, you have 2 ways you can handle it. First, we already have a loading likes here, so you could create a second loader to load them separately. So you could split this into multiple trackers if you wanted to, but we're going to be doing it in one. It's again up to you. Each developer has their preference and each scenario has its needs. So you just change it based on the scenario you have. So let's first go here and just define it. Let loading user like, which is of type meteor, dot subscription handle, or it's undefined. Now if a user ID is actually passed in, then we can handle this. If there's no user ID passed in, there's no need to handle loading the likes. So then here we can go loading user like is equal to meteor.subscribe, and we can get that publication we have here, paste it here, and we need to remember to pass in the data. So const user like data, which is method publish, and there we go, post ID and user ID. Now here we pass this in, and down here where we have our return, we simply say not, and that should be here, not loading user like dot ready, and this might be undefined, so we have this optional here, and if it is undefined, just return or if this. So pretty much if this, so if this was true, it's going to be false. So this returns if we're still loading. That's why this true is here, because this will need to be ticked to false instead of true. Because if this was undefined, if we did not do this, undefined will be ticked to true and will still be loading the likes. So just something you need to keep in mind. I know the syntax is a little weird. It depends on how you like to handle it. I like to have my loading like so I can just check true or false. And there we go. Now to get the user like, we can go const user like, which is a partial. And of course you could define this up here as well with the publications. You could define what it might be returning. It's not returning anything because it's just a cursor, but you could define it somewhere. Anyways, here we go, partial post model or undefined. If you want to be specific, you could say pick. I'm just going partial, which means all of the fields are optional. Make that equal to a use tracker, post like collection dot find, where the, and I'm just going to copy this right here like that. And in here we can just do a dot. You can either fetch it or again you could count it if you want. It depends on what you prefer. It should just return one value anyways, but it depends. I'm just going to throw count in here just to keep it simple. And again, if you wanted to, you could pass in the post._id and the user ID. I've never really seen this being used in a real life scenario. I think only in the Meteor documentation have I seen this really be used. So whether you use it or not, I think it's dependent on scenario. Then here we have a user like. And of course you don't need to use count, you could use .fetch. Then you can get the actual data. Just know that you can choose between either or. Actually, I think this might be a bug that is in the script, because this should be a .fetch, because here we don't have a count, we have a post model and a partial. This should be a fetch then, that is a script mistake then. Now we have this user like, then here we have our heart. Now I can check, and here I'm just going to add a space, if user like. So if one with data has been returned and it's not just undefined, then return heart filled, else heart outlined. And with heart filled, we can also just go style and give it a nice color of red. Now it's even cooler because, oh, all of them are red. And the reason is because they will always return an array. Yes, that does make sense. Again, another little mistake in the script that I will need to fix here, because here we don't say we're getting an array, we're getting a partial, we're getting one, just one. So this should be not find, but find one. Now if we take a look at it and we close this, you'll see if I like it, it goes red. If I don't, it changes. As simple as that. You could probably see why a lot of people would prefer this. You don't have to do any random fetching, you just throw in this use tracker here and it does everything for you. And you are right. That is why a lot of companies, or a lot of developers rather, when they use Meteor, they fall into the trap of making everything a tracker because it's easy. It's simple. But in the long run, the trackers become too heavy and you need to scale up and scale up and scale up till no matter how big you scale the system, at some point the boss is going to be like, hey, this is very expensive to run. You are going to need to do something, and then you'll need to convert all of these to Meteor methods anyways. That is why most new companies and new developers say don't use trackers unless you have to, unless there's a specific feature that requires you to fetch data immediately and get that data immediately. Don't use trackers. Even though it's comfortable, even though it is easy, don't. Because there's a lot of mistakes that can be used with use tracker. If it's used in the right place at the right time, not a chat app. I have made a chat app on one of my second channels with use trackers, which is a good way to learn how to use trackers, but it's not a good implementation of trackers because it's too heavily reliant on trackers, and trackers are too heavy in general. So a chat app gives you a good example of how it could be useful, but not a place where it is the best choice to have. Because once you scale that chat app, you're going to notice real quick, hey, I should have used Firebase instead. So it's a nice feature that Meteor has, and it's one of the reasons why you want to use Meteor. But it's not the only feature it has. Meteor has many other features that you could focus on instead, and use this as your backup. But that's enough of me preaching. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed and now know how to use trackers properly. And I will see you all again in the next Meteor tutorial.